All right, this is from the 2022. This is the 2D array question. We have a class that's called the data class. And in that class, we have a integer max. We do not know what that max is, but it's final and it will not change. We have a 2D array called grid. It tells us that grid is not null, so we don't have to worry about the null exception. And for part A, they want us to write public void repopulate. So what's going to happen here on that, for repopulate, we're going to have our matrix, and it wants to repopulate this matrix with numbers, integers, and they're going to be between 1 and max inclusive, and those have to be divisible by 10, but not divisible by 100. So remember, if we talk about something being divisible, that's when you're talking about the mod of whatever it is equal to 0. So we want the number mod 10 to be equal to 0, but we want the number mod 100 not to equal 0. So the first thing we got to do is create the array values by using math.random. So we want it to be equally as likely between 1 and max. So remember, if we want to use math.random, we're going to cast it to an integer. So it's going to be math.random. And then we're going to have to multiply by something, and that's really the range plus 1. So it's the biggest number we want minus the smallest number we want plus 1. So our biggest number is max. Our smallest number is 1. And then we add 1. So we're going to multiply by just max. We want this to be shifted up 1, so we have to add 1. Remember, whatever's here is telling you how much to add to shift our range. All right, so that's kind of what we have here. So we're going to write public void repopulate. Remember, the void means that there is no return type. We already have grid instantiated, so we just now have to loop through, and we're going to do a row major traversal. So for int r is equal to 0, r is less than grid.length, r plus plus, that's going to traverse your rows. Then we're going to traverse our columns. So int c is equal to 0, c less than grid row 0 dot length, c plus plus. So first thing we're going to do is create a random number. So int number is going to be exactly what we had just talked about. It's going to be casting to an int, math.random times max plus 1. Now that creates our random number. So that's going to be all the numbers equally likely between 1 and max. So let's say the number is 20. Is that a viable number? Well, we are likely to get 20 because that's within our range. Now the two rules we have to have. This has to be mod 10 equal to 0, and we need this to be mod 100 equals to 0, not equals to 0. So we're going to check that after we create our random number. So we're going to keep creating new numbers until we have one that meets the value. So we're going to do this while we don't have what we want. So we're going to say num mod 10 is not equal to 0, or the num mod 100 is equal to 0. So while one of those cases is, if those both are false, then we're going to enter that again. So here, then we're going to go through, and it's going to say, we're going to recalculate the num. And it will keep recalculating this until we get a number that will not pass through there. Once we do that, then we're going to add that to the array. So that's going to be grid at position RC is going to equal num. And then this did not have a return type because it was void. Part B. So looking here, you would need no error bounds here, and you get 1 point for that. The second point is correctly creating the num. So you need this math.random. You get 1 point for that. The next point comes from checking both mod 10 and mod 100, that it meets the criteria. And the next thing is adding it at the appropriate place. And that first part is worth 4 points. So part B wants us to write a method, count increasing columns. Well, we're going to be doing a count, so we know we're going to have to instantiate a memory location for count. So that'll have to be at the very beginning of the program. We're going to fix a column and traverse a row, which means we are going to do column major traversal. We also want to see if something's increasing. If it's completely increasing through the column, then we're going to count it. If there's one element for which it decreases, then it is not completely increasing, so you're going to change that to false and not count it. They gave us another example here. This one should have returned 1 because that's the only totally increasing row. You see right here, column 0 is increasing. Column 2 is also in their world increasing because they said they could also be equal. So it would return 2. So public int count increasing column with no error bounds. The second part comes. So the first thing we're going to do is create a memory location for the count. This is going to count how many columns are increasing. Then we're also going to have a Boolean flag, which I'm going to call Boolean increasing, and I'm going to set that equal to true. We're going to do a column traversal, column major. So we're going to start with the columns first. So int column is equal to 0. Column is less than grid.0.length. Column plus plus. And then after this, we'll traverse our rows. So for int r is equal to 0, r is less than grid.length, r plus plus. So if we imagine 1, 2, 3, that would be a completely increasing row. But if I have 3, 2, 2, that is not an increasing row. So we need to compare any two elements in the column. So I'm going to say if our grid at R, C, which would be this one right here, if that is greater than grid R plus 1, C, then we know it's no longer completely increasing. So I'm going to change my flag to false. Now let's go back and check. Whenever you have something similar to you have here an R plus 1 and an R, you have to make sure that you don't go out of bounds. So my grid.length has got to be -1. My other choices is I could have used R minus 1 and R and then start our row traversal at 1. So then we're going to go down here, and if the increasing is still true after this loop, then we know that we found a completely increasing row, so you can do count plus plus. And then no matter if that was increasing or not, you're going to set increasing back to true. After you traverse both things, then you're going to return return count. So how was this scored this year? The first point comes from traversing the grid. the first point traverses in column major order. So you get 1 point for starting column major. Compares two elements in the same grid. So right here gives you another point. Next one determines whether a single column is increasing or decreasing. So here I did that with a Boolean flag. Counts all the columns that are increasing. So you're going to have to check that it's increasing, increase your count. And lastly, you're going to return the count of the increasing values. Return the count of the increasing columns.